So I'd like to introduce and welcome Margaret Curtis. She'll be talking about NCEP Central Operations, an introduction for field offices, what you didn't know you didn't know. Go ahead, Margaret.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. As you said, I'm from NCEP Central Operations. A little bit about my background. I've been with NCO for almost 2 years now. I've been with the Weather Service for almost 13. And so the first 10 to 11 years of that were at the forecast office in Gray, Maine as an intern and general forecaster. So I've spent a lot of time around AWIPs, around the WFOs, a number of years as the AWIPs focal point. And then I came over to NCO. And when I came over to NCO, I didn't realize at all the scope of what goes on here. So the goal here is just to give you an idea of what types of things and activities we're involved in and give you a chance to ask any questions that you have. So NCO, as the red said, it's NCEP Central Operations. That's the National Centers, plural, for Environmental Prediction. Pop quiz, there's 9 national centers. Anyone remember what they are? Spoiler alert, NCO is one of them, probably one of the most forgotten ones, I'm embarrassed to say. People tend to give me the Hurricane Center, maybe the Storm Prediction Center, but there are 9. NCO is mostly based in College Park, Maryland, but we do have some facilities out in Boulder, Colorado, as well as supercomputers in Phoenix, Arizona, and Manassas, Virginia. So we're pretty spread out. I'm actually coming to you this morning from Westbrook, Maine. I'm still in the greater Portland area after my time at the FO. So having said that, that first slide is already wrong. We just got the news that there is an upcoming headquarters realignment. So we will become NWS Central Operations. This means, let's see, my boss's boss's boss will change. But otherwise, like I said on the slide, same great people and services, everything I have to stay here will remain the same. And I actually think this is a great change because really, as you'll see, our organization is supporting the entire Weather Service, not just NCEP. So I think it's a more appropriate name. So who are we by the numbers? There's about 75 feds and 150 contractors. We have 5 branches. I won't get into too much into the details of the org chart, but I will go through what all of our different branches do. You don't need to know necessarily who does it, just that we do work on it. We have 2 supercomputers, so the big things that run the GFS, 3 data centers, Kansas City, College Park, and Boulder, and well over 4,000 Linux servers. So fun fact, our 2 computers are 61 and 61st and 62nd fastest in the world, so that's pretty cool. So what does NCO do? I stole this straight from our website and our mission statement, but we are IT centric. We are all of that background stuff that you never knew happened. I used to give tours in the forecast office all the time. I'd show them how I draw the warning polygons and how we click go, and then I'd say, and then it goes out to the world. It turns out there is an entire group devoted to, and then it goes out to the world. So we support all of these activities, and I'll go into more details on them. So information technology, we have a dedicated IT staff that is our infrastructure and web services branch. For those of you at the forecast office, it's essentially an entire branch of ITOs. So there are the system administrators, database administrators, networking, or actually networking separate, hardware, all of those things. We have 3 different data centers. This is a data center picture I stole from the internet. I will say, though, that ours in College Park looks fairly similar without the cool blue lights. So I'm not sure what you have to do to get cool blue lights, but it looks like the computer room for AWIPS, just huge. 2 supercomputers, and then for a lot of the NCEP centers, we support their computing as well. Their AWIPS and NAWIP systems, Windows laptops, Linux workstations, all that type of stuff. So what does NCO do for you? I think probably the most well-known thing is that we run all of NOAA's modeling capabilities. So this is actually our supercomputer. Apparently the supercomputers do really get the blue lights. I haven't gotten a chance to see that one in person yet. But we run all of the weather service models. The GFS is our big one, the Ensemble, the MBM, the HER, the RAP, the NAM, all of the hurricane models, including the new hurricane suite, the HAFs that came online for this summer, the analysis for RTMA and IRMA, which you might also use. And the list just keeps going. I cut it off because there are just so many of them. And we provide them through to the world in a number of ways. Surprisingly to me, before I joined this organization, one of the biggest ways of distribution is actually through our website, the NOMADS, NOAA's Operational Modeling Archive and Distribution System. I was used to getting the models in AWIPS, but the rest of the world downloads them from NOMADS, and we maintain that. We also maintain IDP, the Integrated Dissemination Program. And I think this is the part that was most surprising to me. This is all that stuff that, at least for me, I hadn't thought about where it comes from. HADS, how does your stream gauge get from the stream gauge to the satellite and back out to your office? It comes through us. MRMS, we collect all of the radar data into a central point, process it all into all those nice MRMS products, largest scale size, et cetera, and then send it back out. We handle the CAP alerts for when you send out the warning. We're the ones who parse them in to send them on to FEMA and to your mobile phones. The website, if you're someone who updates your FO's website and the CMS, that is part of our group as well. And when I actually need to update this because NWS chat has now gone over to Slack, but until a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, we had that as well. Oh, and Iris. Iris is another big one that we run. And there's more. These are just sort of the top hitters. The websites, like I said, we have a whole branch with web in its name. Essentially, if it's something.weather.gov or something.ncep.noaa.gov, it is probably our responsibility. I think the most popular ones are obviously the main weather.gov page. And another big one that I know the forecast offices get concerned about is your spot, both the feed to take the spot requests and send them to your office, as well as sending your spot forecasts back out to your customers via the web. Networking. One of our teams is devoted entirely to networking. So we run your internet, the one NWS net. Also run your backup internet, the VSAT, the dish that's outside when your internet goes down. And this is just a little hint of a diagram of all the responsibilities that our networking team has. We have dedicated big connections between College Park and our Boulder data centers, which are 2 data centers. I should say, I didn't even really mention, I mentioned that we have a couple data centers. We have multiple things because being an operational system, we need redundancy. So everything that we can do in College Park, we can do in Boulder and vice versa. So we don't have one place to run MRMS, we have 2. We don't have one place to run HADS, we have 2. Everything we do, we have a primary and a backup so that we have a redundancy so that we can do updates on one and keep your data flowing the other way. And we also have monitoring for all these things. We can see how much network traffic is going through. I was at Gray, so I tend to pull my examples from GYX, is how much bandwidth they were using. Not sure what they were downloading on that date, but obviously something big. Another big important thing that we do is data dissemination. Prior to being an NCO, I had sometimes heard people refer to, quote, the gateway or the TG. Anyone's ever heard that? It was always this mythical thing to me. I don't know, the data goes, and sometimes NCF tells me I have to talk to the gateway. Well, this is the gateway. The gateway is essentially our system for all WMO headed data. We are not only the central point for the Weather Service, we are the central point for all of WMO Region 4. So that includes a bunch of countries through the Caribbean. So we work with a bunch of international partners. But every single form of data, observations, text products, warnings, watches, your AFDs, buffer products, your upper air data, your model data that's going out to the SBN or on to international customers, satellite data, foreign observations and warning. If you're a WFO that borders Canada or borders Mexico and you want to see foreign observations, we pull them all into a central database and then sort them back out. So it's essentially this main switchboard of the Weather Service. We send them out to the NCEP, to the satellite broadcast network. We send them out to partners like the FAA. We send them out to international partners. The UK Met Office gets a lot of things, and to the web for you to look at. In our world, the WMO header is the key product. The forecast office, I tended to look at the AWIPS pill. There's that 6 letters you type into the text browser and you say what it is. This is MTR, MWN, this is a METAR one. But there's also a corresponding WMO header. And this is what we use for all of the dissemination through to international, because as the World Meteorological Organization implies, that's what the international community recognizes. That's just something to keep in mind, that if you're talking to us about a data feed, if you have the choice of sending us those gobbledygook letters, it's probably going to be very helpful in tracing your data. So I mentioned that we run all the models, and of course we disseminate all the models. The model's not much good if it just sits on the supercomputer and no one can use it. We send it out to NAWIPS, we send it out to AWIPS. If anyone is using data delivery in their AWIP system, that is going that way too. We have Conduit, which is an LDM feed to a lot of the universities. And essentially, no matter where you get it, the original source is always NCO. So all of these websites, and I'm sure just by looking at them, you can recognize what popular sites I stole these from, but they're all going to be getting it somehow from us, usually via the Nomads website. The other big thing to keep all this running is that we need to be watching it. With so many things that we're running, we need to have monitoring. We do have 24/7 monitoring. I think that's really important for you to know. You know, if you're on the midnight shift and something's broken, someone is there and someone is watching. Our monitoring system is known as Big Brother, which I think is just great. You can tell all your friends that the government's Big Brother really is watching you. But this is just a snapshot. I guess I took this back in June of what we're looking at. We're looking at the health of all of our systems, all sorts of different checks. We're checking whether the LDM is running, whether the disk is running. And all 4,000 of those Linux servers that I mentioned we have will be on these checks. Similarly for our data feeds, anyone who sends us data, that includes international partners, that includes like the WeatherCoder website. Those get routed when you type it into weathercoder.org. It comes back into us, it comes back into our core and goes out. So we monitor all those inbound and outbound feeds, as well as all of the websites that we manage. And again, here's just a little side note: api.weather.gov, alerts.weather.gov, a lot of different websites. 24/7 monitoring is done by our operational monitoring branch. The one you've probably heard of is the senior duty meteorologist. So emoji reaction icon if you have called the SDM before. Anyone on the call ever called the SDM? Okay, who's called the SDM for something other than an upper air launch? All right, we got one. I think in 10 years, I maybe had called once. My impression was always that the SDM's main job was doing those, keeping track of the upper air and paying attention to that, which is one of their jobs. But really, the SDM is sort of like the event coordinator for all of NCO. They're the ones who are taking a look at the big picture. They're doing all our coordination. They're watching those monitors, figuring out what's down, figuring out who they need to call in. They work in tandem with a couple other people. We have one person called their SOS, which is dedicated just to the model production suite. So monitoring, make sure the GFS is running on time, if something happens, if it needs to be restarted. We have a tech control team, which monitors all of those in and outbound feeds. They're the ones who are going to take that first look for us as to what's going on, whether we are missing data from a customer or we're having trouble connecting, as well as the gateway who'll be checking all of their network and internet. So when your internet drops, when your internet slows down, that's something that we have 24/7 support for. So if we have this 24/7 support, what should you do? What to report? My bottom line is report everything. We can't fix it if we don't know it's broken. I've never been one to shy away from opening a ticket, as anyone who knows me. But things that we can deal with, products don't get to a web, something's missing from multiple WFOs or single WFOs. You're missing model data, you're missing observations, you're missing satellites. Central region, you guys probably don't have as many of the wave model runs going on. I'm trying to remember if you run it for Great Lakes, but that's something you can do. Internet or VSAT outage. One of the best things that you can provide is the impacts. I have the monitoring, I have a little dot that's going to be yellow or red saying that product blah is missing. What's harder for me to know is how important that product is to your operations. Sometimes it's obvious. I know the lake forecast for Winnipesaukee in the middle of the night in April probably isn't very important. And I know the lake forecast for Lake Pontchartrain in the middle of a landfalling hurricane probably is very important. But there can be a pretty wide range of impacts. And so knowing whether it's broken and how it's affecting you can really help. Because part of our 24/7 support team's job is to triage. They're the ones who are going to decide how many people need to be woken up in the middle of the night to fix this, or if it can wait until morning. So as far as reporting, the more information, the better. Who, what, when, where, and why, as much as you can provide. Someone in my last talk accused me of stealing this from a spotter talk, which I may be. So similar to when you're talking to other users and they just say, your forecast is awful or it's broken. You know, the more specific you can be, the better. If you say what system, where you are, what system it's on that's broken. If you're able to tell us what web page, what header, and there are certainly times where you won't know all this information. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't report it anyway. But I know the more information you provide, screenshots, that type of thing, the better we can make sure that we have the right person available to fix it. So what happens if you report something? Like I said, they're triaged by the SDM on our 24/7 staff. They're going to open a ticket. Pro tip, definitely use a group email address on the ticket. It works both ways. If your midnight shift says something's broken and I come in at 8 a.m. and I can't contact them, that's going to delay us getting able to fix it. So if you are in a group ops setting, you know, putting your ops contact information would be helpful. They have a matrix of what's going on, what gets priority. Anything with warnings, any critical operations are impacted, they will call an on-call. All NCO teams have a 24/7 on-call support person. And then if it seems like it can wait till the next business day, we'll put it on the list for then. One thing that's really impressed me in NCO is the accountability that we're held to. I think when I was out in the field, I just thought, oh, well, there's no point in telling someone it won't ever get fixed. I heard that idea a lot, and that's not true. You know, when something gets called in, when it gets reported broken, every day at 9 a.m., we have an ops meeting. And we go through everything that was reported broken. And each team has to be able to speak to whether they fixed it, what they're doing to work on it to fix it, what resources they need, and how that's going to happen. So Critical tickets are a big deal and do really get looked at. There's a lot of accountability for that. So I am part of the data flow team. I think our team name is fairly straightforward. We are responsible for all of the data that moves around really most of the Weather Service. We have 8 team members and a team lead. Normal work hours are days, but as I said, we do have a rotating on-call responsibility. So after hours, weekends, there is always someone available. We handle everything to and from the supercomputer. You're not going to get a great model run if you have no input data going into it. So we handle both the input data into it to run the models, as well as the model data getting out to the world to be used. The telecommunications gateway and WMO, all of the data feeds going into or out of our central database there for all our international partners. We handle most of the national centers, certainly all the ones in College Park, which includes OPC and the Weather Prediction Center. And we also handle the data flow for all our integrated dissemination programs. So if your radar data isn't showing up in IRIS or your LSRs from IRIS aren't going back out to the world, that's something we often get involved in. What types of things do we do other than chasing down issues? Well, we do usually have 1 to 2 people full-time devoted to chasing down whatever ops issues are going on today. We also get heavily involved in the model upgrades. Another thing I hadn't really thought about before, but anytime they change something on a model, we can't just change it because we need to know what will happen. So if we change the GFS, are we adding new data? Who wants the new data? Where does it need to go? Is it correct? Is it in the right format? Who needs to be notified? All that kind of things. We get new data requests from the centers, from the model developers. People say, hey, I really want this new gauge or this satellite product in my AWIPS. That can go through us. We also handle requests for products that are going to be fed onto the SBN. I've got a couple things pending to go onto the SBN right now. A Canadian radar will hopefully be coming on to SBN sometime this fall, as well as National Profiler network data. So those are 2 data feeds that I'm personally excited about, but just 2 of many. And then ops down reports for the SDM, anything broken, as I've said. And the last thing is coordinate with internal, external, and international partners. This is really what we spend a lot of time doing. There's a lot more coordination with international partners than I would have thought. But in addition to all of you, our primary operational users, we also handle all other users of NOAA data. So anyone who's running one of those websites that you love to click on for your favorite SKU plot, if they're having trouble, their contact and questions will also come into our team as part of the data flow. I want to highlight a couple websites that I really like. One is the Critical Weather Day. This is another one. Who pays attention to the Critical Weather Day notifications? Yeah, it's one worth watching. So for Critical Weather Day, which right now we have nothing declared, we have specific criteria for that. Landfalling, tropical system, a high risk for excessive rainfall, a moderate or higher risk from the SPC, and then there's others that can get coordinated as needed. When you have a critical weather day, I'm not allowed to make any changes to the operational systems. I had something on my to-do list. It was supposed to make a tweak to the website. It's going to be really minor. Not going to happen on a critical weather day. So that pretty much locks us down nearly completely. The NCO director is the only one who can approve changes on critical weather day. And generally, the only changes that are approved are to fix things that are critically broken. I also just like this webpage for situational awareness. I think they've done a great job of just giving you an idea of what's coming up for severe thunderstorms, rainfall. No winter weather yet. Quite a lot of tropical activity. The other thing to mention here is that we do now also have an enhanced caution event, or ECE. Anyone seen that come through? This just came up about 6 months or so ago. And it's essentially like a critical weather day light. If you want to do a stoplight, we're in green, critical weather is red, and enhanced caution is the yellow. And this is the one where, again, we'll need all of our changes to stop and be approved by someone. And it's going to depend a little bit on what's going on. Some things do go through. Example, the other day, we were in enhanced caution worried about a tornado outbreak across the southeast. Well, there was a change that they need to put in for Alaska for tsunamis. Okay, Alaska tsunamis, probably low risk impacting the southeast US. So that type of thing can go through even with critical weather. The model production status is another one that's great. It's available to everyone. This is all of our models and how they're running. So right now, as we talk, the 12Z GFS is running. Actually, it's 11:27 my time. So the very first GFS file should be coming out in about 5 minutes. It usually hits at about 35 after. And you can see when it usually starts, when it usually ends, what's happening, if there are any delays ongoing. But this is a nice reference to have. If you're missing something, you go and look here and it says it's delayed, you know it's not you. Everything's delayed. Right now it looks like the 14 and 15Z HER are running. And the last one to show was the NCO dashboard. Oh, that's the other one. That's the other one again. This one should be visible to you, but you will need your NOAA Google account. So it's not available if you're, home or on your phone. But that just gives you a big overview of everything that we have going on. The data centers, these are all of our applications that we run. The MAG is another one, the model guidance website. Our inbound and outbound radar 2, radar 3. So quick look at all of the status for radars nationwide. NIDS, the web farm, models. And like I said, our 24/7 folks update this in real time. So this is what all of our products are doing, all of our networks. Anyone from Boise or Pocatello on? If you guys are apparently degraded in there. So we're keeping track of that. And all of our apps. Looks like we have a pretty good day going today. That is my quick overview of NCO. I'd love to take a few minutes if you have any questions. If you have any questions about what types of things we do in general, about how your data is handled, or anything else, please ask away.
Yes, thanks, Margaret. Great overview of NCO. If you have any questions, please raise your hand or put it in the chat. Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, thanks, Margaret, for doing this presentation for us on the CR guest speaker series. And I think I hope people realize there's a lot going through NCO. I mean, what was your experience like there, jumping, from the forecast office to NCO, and like, did you kind of get shocked by the amount of stuff going on? Was it like, whoa, this is like way more than I?
Yeah, absolutely. There's just a huge volume of stuff. And I think I didn't realize. And then a lot of the things, as I learned about them, I've realized I just hadn't stopped to think, where does that come from? It doesn't come from the ether, of course.
Yeah, and for kind of reference for all of you. So yeah, that process of adding new data is because there's so many different people that can be involved in that. We actually have a national team kind of stood up, involving various groups for when we do get new data. So it's a lot of cross-checking and everything. So yeah, even with like new NVM upgrades, you have to is there space on the SPN? What changes for NCO? Will they have to make nomads space? Then is AWEPS ready to handle it? And so yeah, it's a lot of stuff. So again, thanks again, Margaret, for doing this. Actually, you have a separate question. So I know that one of the things we do in NCR, and Greg's on too, that we communicate the various Verizon outages, and I think we are just monitoring one of the NCO maintenance calendars. Is that the best item, or is there anything else? And when Kevin Condity was around, he was very nice at just sending that information along. But if there's any other mechanisms to help alert offices of Verizon maintenance.
Yeah, our main calendar is the NCEP schedule of events calendar, and that's usually the best place to go. That is our master list of everything that's happening across the enterprise. It's reviewed every day on our 9 a.m. ops meeting, so 9 a.m. Eastern, so I guess 8 a.m. Central. So by the end of that, any changes that we've heard, and we do have a Verizon and as well as AT&T and our other network representatives on that call. So that's where we go, and we'll tell them, hey, they're expecting tornadoes today. You really can't just cut their internet today. Of course, sometimes it's out of everyone's control, but we try.
Yeah, thanks. That's good information to know too. I know the offices are oftentimes they're like, we can have this Verizon maintenance right now. So.
Yeah, and I think what you said, the scope of it is just much, much bigger. I know the FO level, I always sort of roll my eyes like, why does headquarters, and I use the term headquarters for essentially anything that was outside my jurisdiction, region, headquarters, NCO, who knows? Why do they take so long to make changes? I can change this for my one FO in 10 minutes. Why do I have to do all the shenanigans? And we do. Our normal change procedure is if I'm going to change something, I test it on our dev system. I write up the instructions of exactly what I'm going to do, and someone else on my team reviews it. Now, once my team lead signs off, it goes to the weekly meeting where the branch chief signs off, and then if they approve it, I can put it in the following week. That is a lot of overhead to make one change. And my initial reaction was, oh my gosh, this is why we never get anything done. But the longer I've been in the organization, the more I realize how important that is, because the implications are just much, much, much bigger. If you're making a change on one AWEPS, you break one feed for one AWEPS. If you're making a change on the primary national server, it has the potential to take down the whole country. And so we really need that level of double and triple checking to make sure that the operations stay up.
All right, last call for questions. Not seeing anything. I'd like to thank Margaret again, and thank everyone for attending the latest guest speaker series.
Yeah, thanks for having me. And feel free to reach out if anyone has additional questions they didn't want to bring up during the seminar.
Great. Thanks again.